My parents threw me out so my golden sister could live there even though I paid. Have you ever felt so utterly, completely invisible that it cut right to your soul? Because I did. I bought my parents their dream home, a fresh start, a clean slate. But what happened next? What happened next was a betrayal so profound it made me realize some bridges aren't meant to be mended, and some family ties are better severed. You see, for the last 15 years, I, Madison, have climbed the cutthroat ladder of Wall Street, becoming a senior manager at one of the leading investment banks. But this story isn't about my career. It's about my sister, Emily, my parents, and a house. The very house that became the battleground for a lifetime of unspoken hurts. To truly understand it, we have to go all the way back to the beginning. My parents were in their late 40s when I was born, so I was an unplanned child. My mother, bless her heart, would often remind me of this. Not with malice, but in a tone that somehow made it sting even more. Emily was 10 years older, and apparently more than enough. "We didn't plan for you," she'd say casually, while meticulously organizing Emily's extracurriculars or her college applications. Those innocent-sounding comments, delivered with a detached air, became the constant soundtrack to my early years, always reminding me I was an afterthought. If it weren't for my maternal grandparents, I might not even be here. My parents saw me as an unexpected burden, but my grandparents, they were thrilled at the prospect of a second grandchild. Every morning, like a ritual, my father would drop me off at their house. "You wanted her," he'd say to my grandfather, keys jangling in his hand. "She's all yours." And I was. Their home became my true sanctuary, a haven where I felt genuinely loved, truly wanted. They made sure I was fed, picked me up from school, helped with homework, took me to the park. My grandfather, a retired math professor, spent hours teaching me about numbers, problem solving. "Numbers never lie, Madison," he'd tell me. "They tell stories more honest than people do." These lessons, little did I know, would shape my entire professional future. My grandmother, a retired high school teacher, would sit with me at the kitchen table every afternoon, patiently guiding me through my schoolwork. "Knowledge," she'd say, with a firm yet gentle wisdom, "is the one thing nobody can take away from you." She even taught me to cook, not as a chore, but as an act of creativity and love. Those hours in their kitchen, reviewing my day, learning to measure ingredients with precision, became my most cherished memories. My parents would pick me up late at night, usually exhausted and a little irritated. But every night, as my grandmother held me tight, she'd whisper, "You're the best thing that ever happened to us, Madison." In her embrace, I could almost forget that I wasn't wanted anywhere else. My grandparents were my emotional anchors, providing the stability and affection glaringly absent at home. My grandfather often added, "Remember, Madison, sometimes the best things in life aren't planned." While Emily was being groomed for a bright future, I learned to live as an afterthought in my own home. My sister, she just pretended I didn't exist. She wasn't overtly mean. She'd be sprawled on the couch, phone glued to her ear, gabbing about boys in college, totally oblivious to me playing with my dolls in the corner of our shared living room. The difference in how my parents treated us was stark, undeniable. I'd hear my mother's voice, brimming with pride, talking to friends or family. "Emily got straight A's again. Emily made the debate team. Emily got into her dream college." They were at every single one of her school functions, her science fairs, her debates. My events? "We're too tired. We have to work," or the classic, "You understand, don't you?" My grandparents, though, they were always there, my enthusiastic cheerleaders, beaming with genuine pride. When Emily finally left for college, I hoped things at home would change. I was the daughter who stayed. Perhaps I thought my parents would finally see me. I was dead wrong. At 14, I went from invisible to housekeeper. "Madison!" my mother would call out, before I even had my backpack off. "The house needs cleaning. Start with the bathrooms." I inherited all of Emily's chores, plus a few extra. The washing machine and I became intimate companions. Cleaning, cooking, maintaining a home for parents who barely acknowledged my existence. It felt like an endless loop of domestic servitude. You live here, you need to contribute. My father would bark if I hesitated. Your sister always did her part. And then, one day, my mother simply stopped cooking. You're old enough now, she declared. We expect dinner ready when we get home. Despite the crushing burden of household responsibilities, I maintained stellar academic standing. My teachers noticed my aptitude for economics and math, encouraging me to compete. My grandfather, ever my mentor, spent extra time teaching me complex ideas far beyond my grade level. You have a gift with numbers, he'd exclaim, his eyes shining. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. College became my escape, my nightly ritual. After the dishes, I'd retreat to my room, poring over university websites, dreaming of campuses far away from the endless tasks and chilling silence. My diligence paid off. At 16, despite my home life, I had straight A's and acceptance letters from prestigious colleges, some renowned for their finance programs. Then, one Sunday afternoon, Emily burst through the front door, dragging a tall, smartly dressed man behind her. Mom, Dad, this is James. We're getting married. You'd think she'd just won the lottery. My mother sobbed with joy. My father was already on the phone calling family. They literally sprang from their seats. We'll cover everything, my mother exclaimed, hugging Emily. Our first daughter's wedding has to be perfect. For months, our home was a whirlwind of wedding preparations. Guest lists, venues, flowers, every conversation revolved around it. Money, it seemed, flowed like water. Expensive outfits, high-end vendors, top-tier everything. My grandparents attended the wedding, but they didn't seem to enjoy the extravagant display. My grandfather just shook his head at the champagne fountain. My grandmother scowled at a sculpture that probably cost more than a semester's tuition. They likely already knew what was coming, so they kept their opinions to themselves. The day my acceptance letters arrived, I gathered my courage. At the dinner table, with 3 envelopes fanned out before me, my heart hammered against my ribs. That's nice, my mother murmured, barely looking up from her meal. But we can't pay for it. We spent all our savings on your sister's wedding. Even took out a loan. There's nothing left for college. But you paid for Emily's college, I whispered, barely audible. That was different, my mother said, her tone condescending. We saw potential in her. The silence that followed was deafening. You should get a job, save up, take out student loans, my father chimed in. That's what responsible adults do. I had never dared leave the table without being excused. But that night I did. My hand shaking, I dialed my grandmother. Minutes later, I was crying on their familiar front porch. As I recounted everything, my grandfather's expression hardened, a flicker of something I couldn't quite decipher in his eyes. When I finished, they exchanged a knowing glance. My grandfather took my hand. Madison, he said, we've been saving for your education since the day you were born. We've been expecting something like this. He returned from his study with a folder. Inside, bank statements showing years of meticulous saving. You can choose any of those universities. We've got you covered. That evening, I packed my necessities and moved in with them. My parents, watching TV downstairs, barely looked up when I told them I was leaving. Whatever you think is best, my mother said, eyes glued to the screen. Was that relief I heard in her voice? The years that followed were transformative. I enrolled in one of the best business schools, focusing on financial analysis. Maybe witnessing my parents' poor financial decisions fueled my drive to do things right. My professors quickly noticed my zeal, my innate skill with numbers. For the first time outside my grandparents, someone saw real potential in me. I landed prestigious internships at major financial institutions. Every summer brought new challenges, new opportunities. At Morgan Stanley, my supervisor's performance review was glowing. "You've got a natural instinct for this, Madison. We'd love to have you back next summer." I kept my head down, focused on my studies, rarely thinking of my family, except for my weekly calls with my grandparents. After graduation, I was hired by a top financial firm in the city. The starting salary was beyond anything I could have imagined. I found a small, clean, safe one-bedroom apartment, grateful every morning that I didn't have to make breakfast for anyone but myself. My career soared. Bonuses, promotions, things I'd never dreamed of when I was younger. Within 5 years, I was in a senior role, managing complex portfolios, forging key client relationships. I became known in the industry for my strategic thinking, my analytical precision. Every accomplishment felt like a quiet, profound affirmation that my parents had been wrong about me. Meanwhile, through my grandparents, I learned that Emily's marketing career wasn't exactly thriving. James, her husband, struggled to hold down a job. They were constantly begging my parents for money. "Your mother emptied her retirement account last month to help them with rent," my grandmother confided in one of our weekly calls. "They just can't say no to her." A year later, things got even worse. Despite my parents' help, Emily and James couldn't make rent. They, along with their 7-year-old twins, moved back into my old bedroom. My parents, once so proud of Emily's abilities, were now supporting her entire family, their golden child, once again. I kept my distance, focusing on building my own life, my own career. Every bonus, every promotion, every successful transaction was a silent, defiant testament that I wasn't the failure my parents had always expected. By my mid-30s, I had substantial investments, enough for a down payment on a home of my own. Then, everything changed. My grandfather died suddenly, a severe heart attack. It was a devastating loss. He wasn't just a grandfather, he was the father figure who had supported me when no one else would. My grandmother, who had spent over 50 years with him, seemed to lose her sparkle. Less than 2 months later, she followed him. In every meaningful way, they had been my biological parents, and suddenly they were gone. At the funeral home, as I arranged my grandmother's funeral, I heard my mother's voice behind me. "Madison, do you want some help with the arrangements?" I turned. She looked older, more worn out than I remembered. A part of me wanted to tell her to leave, but her face... I relented. "Sure," I said. "That would be nice." Over the next few days, as we prepared the service, my parents began to open up. They admitted they were struggling. One afternoon, choosing flowers, my father confessed, "We haven't been financially well off since retirement." He went on to mention Emily's twins. I realized my sister and her family were still living with them, draining their dwindling income. A week after we buried my grandmother, we gathered in a wood-paneled office for the reading of the will. Emily and James were slumped in recliners next to my parents. I sat opposite. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife, the room smelling of furniture polish and old papers. None of us knew it then, but what followed would ignite a chain of events that would forever change our family dynamic. Mr. Patterson, the notary, adjusted his glasses and began to read in a monotone. I expected the usual legal jargon, but then his words made everyone sit up straighter. "To our beloved granddaughter, Madison, we leave our house at 1542 Maple Street, and the sum of $150,000. The ensuing hush was deafening. My mother's knuckles turned white as she tightened her grip on my father's arm. Emily's jaw dropped. Mr. Patterson cleared his throat. He glanced at my mother. "And a personal note from Mr. Henderson to his daughter, Margaret," he said. "The message. Remember, Margaret, that we provided you with $200,000 just when you needed it most. As we respected your needs back then, we expect you will respect our final decision." My mother's face flushed crimson, then turned ashen. Emily and James exchanged anxious glances. My father stared at the floor. In the parking lot, after the notary had finished, my parents approached me. The calm veneer they'd maintained during the funeral preparations had been replaced by something desperate. "Madison, honey," my mother said, her voice shaky. "You must understand, we always assumed we'd inherit the house. We're struggling, but we were depending on it. The mortgage, Emily's family's expenses. We could really use the house," my father added, stroking his gray hair, mentioning how Emily's children needed a yard. Emily chimed in too, but I just got into my car and drove away. Over the next few weeks, I kept thinking about my grandparents' parting gift. My life was well established near the city, and while the inherited house held priceless memories, it was too large for me alone. Meanwhile, our weekly chats revealed my parents' increasing financial distress. Helping Emily and her family had utterly drained their retirement funds, and they were struggling to pay their own mortgage. I thought long and hard. Then I decided I would buy them a better house. A single-story, easier-to-maintain place with a lovely garden, using the proceeds from my grandparents' house and some of my own savings. Something cozy for their retirement years. I was shocked by their reaction when I shared my plan. They actually wept with happiness. After several weeks of house hunting, we found the perfect spot, a beautiful ranch-style home with wide doorways, no stairs, in a quiet neighborhood. My parents couldn't stop gushing about how thrilled they were after the purchase was finalized. "A proper housewarming party is what we need," my dad declared. "It's the least we can do." "That would be beautiful," I said, intending to present them with the deed at the festivities. "Just tell me when." Weeks went by. I was busy with work, but I kept expecting an invitation. "Oh, honey, not just yet," my mom would say. "We're still planning. You know, these things take time." My father would echo, "We want it to be perfect. We'll let you know soon." Their evasive answers annoyed me. Something felt off. One evening, after yet another evasive phone call from my mother, I typed Emily's name into Facebook. We weren't connected, and I hadn't looked at her page in years. Just hours ago, she had posted, "Can't wait for this Saturday's housewarming party for Mom and Dad. So excited to celebrate in their beautiful new home with everyone." Scores of comments followed, friends and family confirming their attendance. Pictures showed caterers being hired, decorations being set up. This was no impromptu get-together. This had been planned for weeks. My fingers trembled slightly as I called my mother. "Hello, Mom. I wanted to ask about the housewarming party. Do you have a date yet?" "Oh, honey, not just yet," she said with infuriating ease. "Probably in a few weeks. The specifics are still being worked out. Everyone, it seemed, except me. As that Saturday approached, I had to make a choice. Do I confront them? Do I just let it go? How could they exclude me from the celebration? After everything, after I had bought them this house, I would find out, but not in the way I expected. On Saturday, I parked a block from the house I had purchased for my parents. Through the windows, I could see dozens of people mingling. Emily's social circle, friends, relatives. My father was giving tours of the house I bought, while my mother, in her special occasion pearls, greeted guests at the entrance. Twinkling lights, welcome banners. Laughter and music spilled out onto the street. It was obvious they had spent weeks organizing this housewarming celebration, to which I was not invited. I sat in my car for a while, watching Emily's twins chase each other past crowds of ogling adults. Through the wide bay window, I could see moving boxes, Emily's handwriting on them, stacked in the corner. The relocation of her family's possessions had already begun. I took a deep breath, and then I slipped in through the side door. The aroma of flowers and catered cuisine filled the house. I followed my father's voice to the living room, where he was speaking to a gathering. After all these years of hard work, he beamed, "We finally did it. Bought our dream home. And don't forget about Emily," my mother excitedly added. "She helped so much with the down payment. Such a wonderful daughter, always thinking about family first. Unlike some people." She paused, answering an unspoken question about me. "Our younger daughter? She hasn't helped us at all. too busy with her career to care about family. Heat rushed to my face. I stood in the doorway. Everyone jumped when I spoke. Actually, I said, my voice cutting through the chatter, I think you've got that backwards. A dead silence fell over the room. My dad was the first to recover, his grin tight. Madison, what a surprise! Especially since you forgot to invite me to the housewarming party for the house I bought, I said, stepping into the room. The silence grew. Emily's husband, James, peered at his shoes, wondering why everyone suddenly looked so distressed. One of the twins tugged at Emily's sleeve. You bought it, yes, but it's ours now, my mother snapped, a hint of abrasiveness in her voice. You can't expect eternal gratitude. Heads nodded around them. That's right, my father said, gaining confidence. And frankly, you're not welcome here. This is a family gathering. And Emily and her family will be living here too, my mom added. They've already sold their house. It's all arranged. The twins need a stable home. I extracted a folder from my bag. You seem to be confused about something, I remarked, holding out the ownership and deed documents. This house belongs to me. I never signed it over to you. My mother's face went from pale to ashen. My father began to ramble about his responsibilities to his family. Emily's self-assured grin shattered. Despite my trembling palms, I continued, my voice firm. I was planning to give it to you tonight. I thought this could be a fresh start for all of us. Instead, you've shown me nothing has changed. You can't do this, my mother shrieked. We're your parents. We have rights. No, I said softly. You're just the people who gave birth to me. My real parents, my grandparents, taught me that family means more than blood. They also taught me about finances, which is why I own this house and you don't. I turned to the astonished guests. I'm sorry, but this party is over. This is my house, and I'm asking everyone to leave. My parents, Emily, James, the twins, and all their guests departed in stunned silence. From the porch, I watched them drive off, one by one, until the street was deserted. In the yard, the ornamental lights still sparkled mockingly. Inside, half-empty drinks and discarded food plates littered every surface. The house, which was supposed to be my gift of reconciliation, ended up being the final straw in our relationship. A few weeks later, I found out they'd bought a tiny apartment with the proceeds from the sale of their previous home. 3 generations crowded into a 2-bedroom apartment. They tried calling me constantly at first. Their voicemails range from angry accusations. You've become so heartless, just like your grandparents warned us you would. To guilt-tripping pleas. How could you do this to your own family? I blocked them, all of them. Social media, emails, phone numbers. Their attempts to manipulate me, to twist the narrative, only solidified my decision. The house is now empty. I have an appointment with a real estate agent tomorrow. It's not worth attempting to fix. Like old photos in a dusty album. Some relationships are better left in the past. When I eventually have kids of my own, I've made a promise to myself. They will never need to win my affection or vie for my attention. Unlike my parents, I will love my children unconditionally, just as my grandparents loved me. That Saturday night, when I arrived at the house I had purchased, the one I wasn't invited to celebrate, every heartbreaking reality about my family was exposed. Dozens of guests, catered food, and those moving boxes with Emily's handwriting. It was all there, a brutal tableau of exclusion and entitlement. My father's proud declaration. We finally bought our dream home. My mother's praises for Emily's alleged down payment help, and then her dismissal of me. Madison's too focused on her career to care about family. It encapsulated every insult, every act of favoritism, every moment I'd been deemed an afterthought. I stood in that doorway, witnessing my parents rewrite history, planning to move my sister's family onto my property without even asking. I'd never experienced such brutal clarity. Actually, I said, causing the room to fall silent, I believe there's been a miscommunication regarding the buyer of this house. Their faces, amazement, humiliation, then indignation, told me everything I needed to know about their true emotions. My mother was the first to recover. "What's done is done!" she shrieked, her voice piercing with entitlement. "The house is ours now, and Emily's family needs the space." I pulled out the ownership documents and the property deed. "No, the house is mine. I never transferred ownership to you. I was planning to give it to you tonight, but clearly that would be a mistake." "You can't do this!" my mother cried, terrified now. "We're your parents. We have rights." "The only rights you have," I said quietly, "are the ones I choose to give you. And right now, I'm choosing to ask everyone to leave my property." What followed was a frantic evacuation. Guests rushing out with plates of food still in hand. Emily's twins sobbing in bewilderment, my father trying to maintain some semblance of dignity while guiding people to their cars. "How could you do this to your own family?" was my mother's final, desperate attempt at manipulation, but it crumbled against my newfound determination. In the weeks that followed, the messages started. My father demanded a re-examination. Emily pleaded, tearfully, for her children's stability. My mother accused me of cruelty. I blocked them all. That vacant house became a stark reminder of what might have been a new beginning, an opportunity for peacemaking. Instead, it became the catalyst for my ultimate separation from a family that had never truly embraced me. A month later, I sold it and used the money to fund my own future. Some people ask if I'll ever try to mend those bridges or forgive them. But I've learned that forgiving doesn't always mean letting harmful people back into your life. Sometimes forgiving yourself for leaving is the necessary step. Before putting away an old wedding picture of my parents, I promised my future children that they would never experience the anguish of conditional love, the hurt of being compared to a sibling, or doubt their place in the family. With me, the cycle of partiality and emotional blackmail would stop. The last time I drove past my parents' apartment complex, Emily's twins were playing in the tiny courtyard. For a moment, I felt a pang of sadness. But it wasn't for the relationships I had lost. It was for the relationships that never truly existed in the first place. My grandparents taught me that true family is built on love, respect, and unwavering support, not just blood. I carry their lessons with me as I start this new phase of my life. Love ought to be freely given, never demanded. Family is more than genetics. And sometimes, walking away is the healthiest course of action. I didn't open my mother's last unread email. I deleted it. Any defenses or accusations it contained were no longer relevant. At last, I had discovered how to put my own value ahead of their conditional approval. Their kind of familial devotion has no place in the life I'm creating now. New opportunities await us in the future, free from the burden of attempting to win affection from those who are unable to freely give it. I learned what true family looks like from my grandparents, and someday I'll build that kind of family for myself. One based on mutual respect, unconditional love, and the understanding that each individual is equally important. At long last, the chapter of being the family afterthought is over. Being the author of my own life is only the beginning of my journey. What would you have done in my place? And how do you define family? Tell me what you think in the comments below. I really want to know. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do, and hit that notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories like mine.